Alright, so we're just doing a line illustration from a photograph here. And before I get started, I've just got a few things that I'll show you in my setup. Lighter version of the object, and this is just a power washer, as you can see here. And I've adjusted these levels in Photoshop to get more detail in the darker parts where the shadows are. This is the original photo. It's dimmed to 60 or 59%. And the idea is to see more clearly what those details in those darker parts are. And so a levels adjustment can help out. But I'll mainly be using this one to trace. So I'll lock this and I'll work on this top layer, which I'll title working. And I could create some more layers right now. But what I might do is work on a section or work on a few sections and then start thinking about how to break that down in terms of my layer structure. So let's go ahead and get tracing. I'm just going to turn my fill color off and I'll start in a corner and we'll get going. So I like to try and get the keep the handles vertical and horizontal where possible, if it makes sense. If it makes sense too. And you know, I'm might not be the exact match, but it's close enough. You know, a lot of the time we're just looking for something that's close enough. Accuracy is great, but in this case, for the sake of not taking too long with my video, but still trying to be as accurate as I possibly can, I'll make some compromises. So when we're coming up to these straight segments, you can see that one's maybe just a little bit too high, but again, I'm not going to worry too much. That could work as a straight segment there. This could probably work as just a single segment. What you can see me doing obviously is an outline. So just tracing the sort of major shape that's formed, or the form itself, with a couple of very sort of small segments as well. When we come to these long sort of curves, it helps to not do it in too many segments. So maybe this might be the first one here. This might need to be pulled back a bit. Let's just see. Another thing I could do here, and you know what might make more sense actually, in the cases where we've got a pretty consistent thickness, like in this rod and this pipe or this cord, it might work better to do something like this. I'm going to just deselect the major path and I'll create a new path here and I'll do the stroke through the center, or I'll make the path through the center of the sort of width of this element. So what my idea is, I'm just making sure that it sort of stays in the middle throughout, and of course I'm just trying to make sure that it's fairly fluid through the anchor points. Alright, now it might be a little bit lower. Let's just see if we can bring that back up just a bit. Alright, that's good enough. Alright, so the idea is to get offset path to basically create the width that we see there. So I'll just zoom in, and as I said, it looks pretty consistent throughout. So I'm going to go to Object, Path, and then Offset Path. And we can see the default value is a little bit too much. So let's bring that down to, that's one there, a little bit too thin. So I'm going to try 1.2. Whoops, messed it up. Just click into the mitre just to, alright, that might be maybe just 1.3, and we'll see what that looks like. Alright, so that sort of gets the thickness about right. I think I'm happy with that, so I'll go OK. And now I've got the whole thing traced, more or less, and I'll just make a few adjustments. Make a cut here and one here, back where it sort of comes back to the other elements. And what I might do is just join these two together. So selecting both the points, and I'll average them first. Oops. didn't move it too much, this segment here, so I'm happy with that. And Command J to join them. Okay, so let's follow it down, and it looks like it's sticking pretty nicely to the edges. Did a good job. It might be a bit thin in some places, but no big deal. Cool, so now what I might do is, if I want to continue going on the outline, then I'd have to break it here. But what I won't do is delete the other portion. So I'll break it with the scissor. And then I'll continue working downward. Oops. But I'll leave that other content there, and I'm done with this part now. Let's get rid of that. So coming back to this. Oops. If it does this, if it joins to the other part that you don't want, what I tend to do, just move it so it's out of the way, and then I can place it back wherever it needs to go later on. Alright, so back to the rest of the content now. So these small parts, remember, the thing to always remember is you zoomed in, like in this case, what, 783%. So it's really, really up close and personal, and it might look like I'm making all these inaccuracies, but that's not really the case. I'm so far in that I'm seeing all this detail that, you know, won't really be visible when we're looking at the whole image. So don't worry too much about it. Now that makes a bit of a sharp corner, so I'm going to keep that. In. Alright, so, and then you can see some ridges here, so what I might do later on is make one segment and then just repeat that. Always looking for opportunities to repeat things. Looks like it comes pretty close to the other components here, so I might just bring this back over here and leave that for the time being. It's completely fine to leave things and come back to them later on. Alright, so I'll pick it up from back here, the green case now. And I'm going over sections that I'll obviously need to cut out later on. That's completely fine. Really, the first part is just about getting the major lines in. Getting the lines in first, and then cleaning them up later on. Okay, so it's a bit of an odd one there, doesn't it? Looks like a subtle corner. But I'll keep the rest. Looks like it can be a fairly straight segment. No, not quite. Bit of an odd one, isn't it? And not overdoing it with the points, trying to keep the points to a minimum, but still getting as many as need to be in, as many as necessary. Okay, a little bit of a corner here, which can just be straight line segment. Alright, now to the wheel. So at this point you need to make decisions, like am I going to keep following the case, which yeah I could, or I could go into the wheel. What my idea is to, yeah, as you can kind of see already, make an outline first and then define the areas within the outline later on. So I'll go on the wheel. Need to be a little bit lower. What I could do here with the inside piece, so doing the tire and then the wheel itself, I could create an ellipse. An ellipse could probably do the trick there because you see it's a very simple shape. So it could be me mucking around with my anchor points, with my pen tool, and defining for myself where the anchor points and things go. Or I could just, which I'll do now actually, get my ellipse tool, position it roughly. That's cool. That's fine. So these things can be done very quickly if we use the right tools. Okay, so just a tiny little corner there. I'll ignore that little pipe. I'll just continue doing the... I may as well go through it and cut it later. Ah, I can cut it now. Alrighty, so coming up back towards the top now. And we're getting some slightly irregular shapes, so just trying to follow the curves as cleanly as I can. Might need to zoom in just a little bit. And obviously you can hear me and see me doing them. Shortcuts are super helpful. Things like moving around, spacebar, scrolling using Option or Alt helps to zoom in and out. Where should this go? About there. Another thing I'm doing a lot of is moving my anchor point after I've placed it using spacebar. So very helpful knowing your shortcuts. Let's do that again. Alright, that little hook part is done. Last little bit of the case. And that looks like it meets up pretty nicely with the black part, so let's just make that a single segment. Alright. Again, do I keep going this way and do the rest of the casing? Or do I come back up to the top? And yep, I'm doing the major outline, so I'll just keep going on the top. The reason I do an outline first is to sort of have, yeah, a definitive kind of, you know, a blocked in area. And then all the pieces within that can have, you know, further blocked in areas. So it's just sort of defining these sort of shapes and these lines, doing the large ones first, and then getting into the smaller ones. There's lots of different ways to process a line illustration. You know, lots of different people have different ways of doing it. Might like to focus on other elements first. But yeah, I seem to do well with this kind of method. And this is how I do my line illustrations whenever I do them. So let's go back up and very close to the first point. And obviously, if we've got these straight segments, don't need to worry about handles. And another thing that can help me here is using the Shift key to keep the segments vertical and horizontal. Don't need that right now though. Okay. Let's keep that just a small little handle there. We'll get the curve in at this point. Right, matches up pretty nicely. Might need to come back to that handle. Yep. There we go. So there's the major outline. Now we can see there's still obviously heaps of detail left to do. But that blocks in our sort of area. It's not completely joined either. So it's sort of in two pieces. So what I might need to do, if we have a look down here where it's not connecting, again, need to make decisions. Where am I going to connect this, or do I need to connect it? Doesn't necessarily need to be connected as long as it's the same thickness, and where it sort of meets up, it should look like it's sort of continuing, as in the lines are continuing. So let's think about this now. What will I do? I'm going to go to my scissors and cut this piece here, which I don't need. We can say bon voyage to this one. Okay. And, well, I could do this now. I could probably do this. I'll use my pen tool to connect back up here. So this is the first part of the outline, making a straight line segment there, and then I'll connect it down there. And that can probably be straight. It's so short that it doesn't necessarily need a handle to make a curve. Cool. Now obviously I've got other pieces there. I can just delete them. I'll come back to them later on. So now it's all joined together, or it should be. I believe it is. So the whole outline is now joined together. So what I might do is I might call this layer outline. So that's the outline of the whole object. And then within that, I can have sections or groups or sub-layers. So I might do one for the hose and the hose reel and the handle, and then another sort of sub-layer for the main kind of case components and the vents. This doesn't need to be broken up too heavily. Whatever makes sense. Whatever makes sense to the object. I could probably get away with 3 or 4 layers. Depends on how much content you want in each layer as well. Oh yes, there's that little break there. There's that little break there. So it's not actually a closed path. It is an open path. But it covers 99% of the outline. All right. So that's the first part. I might break this into several parts. So that's getting the initial outline done, setting up, getting the initial outline done. Next video I'll do will be specific to sections. Awesome.